August 2018, Northern Georgia. Derek Kane, 38, owned a small auto repair garage near the highway, employing 2 assistants. He worked 6 days a week and on Sundays fished with his younger brother Tommy. Tommy Kane, 29, had returned from state prison the previous year after a 3-year sentence for burglary. He had cooperated in that case and served partial time. Since release, he worked for Merit Construction as a laborer and driver, lived in a rented room on Pine Avenue, and was saving for a small car wash business. Co-workers called him quiet and focused, avoiding alcohol and arguments. Derek often checked on him, making sure he stayed clear of former acquaintances. Family saw the brothers together each weekend. On the evening of August 17th, Tommy went with co-workers to Harris Taproom near the construction site. Witness statements later confirmed an incident inside the bar around 9 p.m. A patron insulted a waitress. Tommy intervened. The verbal exchange turned physical. Chairs were pushed aside. The men separated within seconds. No serious injury occurred. The other patron was identified as Kyle Dawson, nephew of County Sheriff Ray Dawson. Witnesses heard Kyle say he would fix this later. At 2:45 p.m. the next day, August 18th, 4 law enforcement officers arrived at the construction site. Sheriff Ray Dawson, Detective Mark Veston, Officers Carl Briggs and Danny Short. They approached Tommy while he was moving roofing sheets. Workers saw him pushed against a truck and handcuffed without resistance. He asked what was happening but received no answer. The officers took him behind the building toward their vehicles. Moments later, 3 gunshots were heard. People rushed forward but were blocked by deputies. The official release that evening stated the suspect had attempted to flee and reached for a weapon. The incident was recorded as use of force during arrest. Derek received a call from one of Tommy's co-workers and drove to the site. He was kept outside the tape. Sheriff Dawson later told him his brother was shot while escaping. No warrant or evidence was shown. When Derek asked to see the body, he was told it was under autopsy. On August 19th evening, Frank Hill, 54, owner of the warehouse next to the construction site and a friend of Tommy, contacted Derek. Hill said one of his security cameras had recorded the back lot. He gave Derek a flash drive and told him not to disclose its source. The video was silent but clear. Tommy lay on the ground in handcuffs, motionless. Detective Veston stood over him, drew his service pistol, and fired once. The others remained nearby. After the shot, one appeared to pat Veston's shoulder. No sign of resistance was visible. Timestamp indicated 14:51:33. Derek watched the file several times, then stored copies on 2 separate drives. He contacted an Atlanta attorney specializing in civil rights. The lawyer advised him to keep the video secured and file a complaint with the county prosecutor. On August 21st, the autopsy confirmed 1 gunshot to the chest from less than 1 meter away. No drugs detected. No bruises indicating struggle. The report contradicted the official statement of a fight. The funeral took place on August 22nd at a local Baptist church. Over 100 people attended. Derek's mother cried quietly near the casket. Tommy's 5-year-old niece asked why her uncle was sleeping. Mid-service, Sheriff Dawson, Detective Veston, Briggs, and Short entered in uniform and sat at the back. After the ceremony, Dawson approached Derek, placed a hand on his shoulder, and said, "Sorry about the guy, but he brought it on himself." Veston spoke quietly to Short. Both laughed while leaving. Witnesses later confirmed the interaction. Following the funeral, Derek resumed work at his garage. Employees noticed a change. He was silent, precise, showed no visible anger. He spent evenings alone, replaying the video, studying details, the distance between officers, Tommy's position, the moment of the shot. No plan was spoken aloud, but the decision to trust official justice was already fading. In early September 2018, Derek Kane filed a formal complaint with the Fulton County Prosecutor's Office, attaching the video from Frank Hill's security camera. He retained attorney Raymond Holt, 44, a civil rights specialist from Atlanta, paying with nearly all of his savings. The complaint named Sheriff Ray Dawson, Detective Mark Veston, Officer Carl Briggs, and Officer Danny Short as participants in the unlawful killing of Tommy Kane. Copies of the footage were submitted to Internal Affairs through official channels. Within a week, Derek was notified that the material was ruled inadmissible. The reasons cited: source of evidence unclear, possible data tampering. His attorney received anonymous calls warning him to leave the case alone. Holt informed Derek he could not continue representation due to personal safety concerns and withdrew. The prosecutor's office provided no timeline for review. 2 witnesses from the construction site left town, and the others amended their statements, now confirming the escape attempt version. On September 12th, Frank Hill was found dead at his home. The coroner listed cause of death as myocardial infarction. Derek recognized coincidence, but suspected otherwise. The man who had provided the only independent proof was gone. Left without legal assistance, Derek began collecting information himself. Using public records and archived reports, he reviewed deaths involving the county sheriff's department over the past 5 years. 7 cases involved African American men who died during arrest or detention. In each report, the same 4 names appeared in the responding officers section. None resulted in charges. Patterns emerged: identical phrasing in reports, missing body logs, altered timestamps. Through contacts at a local repair shop that serviced police vehicles, Derek confirmed that the 4 often visited businesses demanding security fees. Mechanics mentioned confiscated cars disappearing from impound. The information lacked direct proof, but indicated a racket organized under Dawson's supervision. Late September, Derek was approached by Lauren Mitchell, 34, a reporter for the local Haven County Journal. She had been investigating Dawson's network for 3 years and sought cooperation. In a private meeting at Derek's closed garage, she presented him with a compiled dossier. Her notes portrayed Dawson as a man with long-term control over the county apparatus. Multiple internal complaints dismissed, financial links to property seizures, and intimidation of small business owners. According to her materials, Detective Mark Veston was described as violent, previously suspended for excessive force, but reinstated after Dawson's personal intervention. Officer Briggs appeared in disciplinary reports as negligent and fearful of conflict. Officer Short had minor gambling debts and ambitions for promotion, frequently covering Dawson's errands. Lauren concluded they operated as a closed unit, acting without oversight. During the same conversation, Lauren disclosed new information. Federal investigators were negotiating with Dawson. He had agreed to testify against a county judge accused of accepting bribes from construction firms. In exchange, Dawson would face reduced charges, 5 years instead of a potential life sentence. The deal was to be finalized in 3 weeks. For Derek, the meaning was immediate. Once the agreement was signed, Dawson would become a federal witness, effectively protected from further prosecution. Lauren also mentioned another name: Detective Cole Harris, 41, Internal Affairs, from the neighboring Clayton County Division. Harris was quietly compiling evidence against Dawson's group, but moved within regulations, collecting warrants, waiting for procedural approval. His progress was slow, and internal resistance was strong. After the meeting, Derek searched his brother's belongings stored at his mother's house. Among them he found Tommy's phone, still functional. Reviewing the messages and audio files, Derek discovered one recording dated August 10th, 1 week before the shooting. The file captured a conversation between Sheriff Dawson and a local store owner, Leonard Parks. The sheriff demanded a monthly payment in exchange for license stability. Background noises matched a convenience store near the highway. Another message from Tommy to a friend mentioned he had leverage on Dawson and was asking for $10,000 to start clean. The realization hit with precision. Tommy had witnessed extortion and tried to profit by blackmail. It did not absolve him, but it did not justify execution while handcuffed. Derek sat on the floor of his workshop, listening to the recording repeatedly, recognizing both voices. It clarified motive and danger. Tommy had crossed a man who never left loose ends. 2 days later, Derek visited the county sheriff's office. He requested to speak directly with Dawson. According to the reception log, the meeting lasted 12 minutes. Derek confronted him about the video and the recording. Dawson remained calm, denied wrongdoing, and escorted Derek toward the exit. As they shook hands, Dawson gripped firmly until pain forced Derek to pull away. Witnesses at the desk heard him say, "Accidents happen all the time." His first focus was Officer Carl Briggs, considered the least dangerous and most predictable of the four. From Lauren Mitchell's dossier and local habits, Derek confirmed that Briggs spent almost every Saturday at Lake Hartwell, a reservoir 2 hours north, fishing alone from the shore. On September 15th, Derek drove there in an old pickup using a borrowed plate, parked several lots away, and walked to the water carrying a rod and cooler to appear as any other visitor. For 2 hours he kept distance, watching Briggs drink from a thermos, adjust lines, and finally pack his gear. When Briggs returned to his truck, Derek waited until the shoreline cleared. He crossed the gravel quietly, slid beneath the rear bumper, and located the main brake line along the frame. Using a small wrench, he loosened the fitting half a turn, enough for a slow leak that would worsen under pressure. The intention was mechanical precision, not spectacle. Within minutes, he was gone. 3 days later, September 18th, local news reported a single-vehicle accident on Route 76 near a mountain curve. Officer Carl Briggs, 41, off-duty, lost control of his pickup, which left the roadway and rolled into a ravine. Investigators noted failure of the braking system, classifying it as mechanical wear. Derek read the article once, then closed the page. There was no satisfaction, only an absence of feeling. 2 days after the accident, Lauren called unexpectedly. Her tone was tense. Detective Cole Harris from Internal Affairs had arrived in Haven County. He had ordered a technical inspection of Briggs's vehicle, questioning whether the failure was accidental. Harris also re-examined old files connected to Tommy Kane's case. Lauren warned that his inquiry might expose inconsistencies leading back to Derek. That conversation ended without conclusions. For Derek, the meaning was clear. Less time remained. He shifted to the next name on the list, Officer Danny Short. The dossier described him as financially unstable, carrying debt to local bookmakers and open to side deals. Short had accepted small bribes in the past and often met intermediaries for consulting. Derek planned to exploit that weakness. Through a contact who owed him a favor, he arranged information to reach Short. A businessman wanted to discuss a private matter and was ready to pay $5,000 for assistance. The meeting was set for September 23rd at an abandoned warehouse on the south edge of town. That evening, Derek arrived early to prepare. He carried no weapon, only gloves and a flashlight. Inside the warehouse, the air was still, dust on the floor undisturbed. As he moved deeper into the space, the beam of light caught a reflection. Metal, then movement. He froze. On the concrete lay Danny Short, face downward. Blood pooled beneath his head. A metal pipe lay beside the body, marked with stains. The posture indicated death from blunt trauma. For several seconds, Derek did not move. Then he heard the faint echo of sirens from the direction of the road. Someone had called it in. The lights were already visible through broken windows. He turned and ran toward the rear exit, climbing through a gap in the fence, cutting his arm on the wire. He reached his truck and drove away without headlights until the town lights appeared behind him. By morning, the case was on every local station. Headline: Officer Danny Short, found dead in abandoned warehouse. The report quoted police sources stating that the victim had arranged a private meeting there, and that the suspect was a man matching the description of Derek Kane, brother of the deceased Tommy Kane. The source of this description was an anonymous caller. Witness accounts claimed a dark pickup was seen leaving the area minutes before officers arrived. Detective Harris was officially assigned as lead investigator. In a press briefing, he stated, "We believe this incident is connected to previous tensions following the Kane case. The motive appears to be revenge. We have leads and are following them." The wording indicated that Derek was already the primary suspect in both Briggs's accident and Short's death. Derek spent that night inside his locked garage, avoiding lights. He reviewed every step taken, searching for what had exposed him. Only 2 people knew elements of his plan: Lauren Mitchell, who had shared information but not methods, and himself. The anonymous caller proved that someone else possessed inside knowledge. Someone monitoring the same targets, moving faster. When he reread the original dossier, the answer seemed implied. Veston, the detective who had executed Tommy, had reason to control the others. If Short had decided to defect or cooperate with Harris, the risk would have required immediate removal. The method, a public killing and planted clue, suggested a deliberate frame. The following morning, police vehicles passed his shop twice. He recognized unmarked sedans from the county department. He closed the doors, turned off the lights, and stayed inside. His phone buzzed repeatedly with calls from unknown numbers. He let them ring. By late September 2018, Derek Kane was officially listed as a fugitive. Local stations aired his photo hourly, describing him as armed and dangerous in connection with the deaths of officers Carl Briggs and Danny Short. His garage was searched twice. Tools and computers were confiscated. Neighbors were questioned. Family members followed. Derek avoided main roads and hid at the property of Charles Landon, 55, a retired mechanic and former colleague who lived 20 miles outside town. Landon kept silent, providing food and a place to sleep in an unused storage shed. From there, Derek tried to reconstruct events. The pattern no longer followed logic. He had tampered with Briggs's truck, but Short's death had been someone else's work. Whoever arranged it had inside knowledge of Derek's movements. Lauren Mitchell managed to reach him using a prepaid phone. They met briefly at night in a park outside Haven County. Lauren reported that Detective Cole Harris was leading a multi-agency manhunt. Harris had interviewed everyone connected to Derek, including relatives, former employees, and construction workers from Tommy's site. According to Lauren, Harris believed Derek was responsible for both deaths and might attempt to kill the remaining officers. But Lauren had obtained information that did not fit the narrative. The medical examiner's report on Short's body described two distinct trauma patterns: defensive bruises on forearms and irregular blunt force impacts to the skull inconsistent with a single attacker wielding the recovered pipe. Additionally, fibers on the weapon did not match Short's uniform. Someone was in a hurry, Lauren said. It looked staged. The question was motive. Derek pressed her for details about Short's activities before his death. Lauren hesitated, then revealed something she had recently learned from a confidential source. 1 week before he was killed, Short had attempted to contact Detective Harris directly. He offered information on Sheriff Dawson's protection scheme in exchange for immunity and relocation. He expressed fear that Dawson planned to eliminate anyone who might jeopardize his federal deal. The call had not been logged officially because Short used an unregistered number. Harris confirmed receiving a message, but never met him. For Derek, the picture became clear. Veston, who had always acted as Dawson's enforcer, discovered Short's intention to cooperate. Killing him removed a potential witness and provided an opportunity to frame the person already under suspicion after Briggs's accident. The anonymous call naming Derek was part of the setup. Over the next 2 days, Derek studied Veston's patterns through information Lauren supplied. Residence on the east side, private security cameras, irregular working hours, and habit of carrying 2 weapons. Veston was cautious, rarely alone. But there was one consistent exception. Every Tuesday evening he visited his disabled sister, Ellen, at a rehabilitation center outside town. He arrived after visiting hours to avoid attention and left before midnight. No escort, no partner, and no patrol vehicle. On Tuesday, October 2nd, Derek drove to the facility before sunset. He parked near a maintenance lot, waited until most staff had gone home, then located Veston's sedan in the parking area. He used a small screwdriver to bypass the rear door lock and hid on the back seat floor. The plan was simple: force a conversation, record a confession. He carried a folding knife and his phone's voice recorder set to automatic mode. At 10:47 p.m., Veston entered the vehicle. The interior light came on briefly as he sat down. Before he could start the engine, Derek pressed the knife to his throat and said quietly, "Drive to a quiet place. We need to talk." Veston froze for a moment, then obeyed, steering toward a service road leading into undeveloped forest. The trip lasted 7 minutes. Once stopped, Derek demanded answers about Short and Tommy. Veston initially denied involvement, claiming Harris had fabricated stories. Derek activated the recorder and repeated the question. After several seconds of silence, Veston laughed. "Yes, I killed that rat Short," he said. "Framed you too. After Briggs, we knew someone was hunting. Short got scared, wanted to talk to the cops. Couldn't allow that." His tone was casual, almost relieved. Derek asked why Tommy had been executed instead of arrested. Veston's response came without hesitation. Your brother 6 years ago testified against my wife's brother. Put him in prison for 15 years. He died there. I waited for my chance. When Tommy tried to blackmail Dawson, I had it. For a moment, Derek felt physically sick. He understood now that Tommy's death was not an accident or simple corruption. It was a personal reprisal disguised as law enforcement. The realization left no space for reason. Veston moved his hand slowly toward the glove compartment, attempting to reach the spare gun. Derek reacted first. In the confined space, the struggle lasted seconds. The knife turned inward. The blade pierced Veston's chest. He gasped, tried to speak, and finally whispered, "You're the same killer. Harris will find you." Then his breathing stopped. Derek sat motionless. The phone's recorder continued to capture the sound of wind through the open window. The next morning, October 3rd, police discovered the body. Public statements described the scene as consistent with violent confrontation. The narrative expanded. Derek Kane, already suspected in 2 deaths, now wanted for the murder of Detective Mark Veston. Derek returned briefly to Landon's property to collect his belongings. He deleted messages from Lauren to protect her identity. Derek Kane understood the implications. Once Dawson signed cooperation papers, every preceding case, including Tommy Kane's death, would fall under federal protection. The sheriff would be recast as a state witness, and Derek would remain branded a serial killer avenging his brother. The cycle of corruption would close permanently. On the evening of October 5th, Derek made one last call to Lauren Mitchell. The line was encrypted through a temporary phone. His message was direct. Publish everything. Your notes, the video of Tommy, the records of racketeering, Veston's confession, and the motive tied to his brother-in-law. All of it. Tomorrow morning, Lauren hesitated, reminding him that exposure would eliminate any path to leniency. "If you do this," she said, "there's no turning back. They'll either kill you or put you away for life." Derek's reply was brief. "I know." The next morning, October 6th, the story went public. The Haven County Journal released a digital edition at 6:30 a.m., containing every document and recording. The material spread within hours to regional and then national outlets. The Federal Bureau issued a statement suspending Dawson's immunity pending review. Agents froze his deal and opened a new corruption inquiry. But Dawson's attorneys acted quickly. They announced that their client was prepared to cooperate fully and portrayed him as another target of a vigilante killing spree. Privately, they assured him that even if charged with corruption, the sentence would not exceed a few years. As long as he remained alive and within federal custody, his position was defensible. From his hiding place, Derek listened to the radio coverage. The word freeze did not mean justice. It meant delay, negotiation, leverage. He understood that as long as Dawson drew breath, the truth would stay subject to interpretation. He retrieved a set of blueprints Lauren had helped him acquire weeks earlier. The plans, dated 1972, showed a discontinued sewer access tunnel running beneath Dawson's property. The system connected to an old maintenance hatch leading to the basement. It had been sealed decades ago but remained mapped. On the night of October 7th, he left Landon's property for the last time. He carried a small flashlight, a handgun obtained through a local contact, and a sealed envelope containing a written confession, copies of evidence, and the audio recording of Veston's admission. Derek reached the access point near midnight. He opened the corroded cover and descended into the narrow tunnel. After several minutes of walking through stagnant water, he found a bricked wall with loose mortar. Behind it, an old metal door led directly into the basement storage room of Dawson's house. The main structure was quiet. Inside the office upstairs, Ray Dawson sat at his desk, surrounded by files and empty bottles. He was intoxicated, but alert. When Derek entered, Dawson looked up without surprise. "Knew you'd come," he said evenly. "Think you're a hero? You're a killer, same as me. Difference is, I didn't pretend." Derek raised the gun but did not fire. The man before him no longer resembled authority, just a hollow figure sustained by arrogance and survival instinct. For a moment Derek considered walking away, leaving the system to handle what was left. But then Dawson laughed, the same low, mocking sound Derek had heard at the funeral. "Your little brother screamed before he died," Dawson said. "Cried for your mother. We laughed." The words removed hesitation. One shot struck Dawson in the chest. The sheriff fell backward, knocking over a lamp. Silence followed. Derek placed the envelope on the desk beside the body. On top, he set the phone containing Veston's recording, still intact. He walked through the main hall and unlocked the front door. Outside, security lights flared. Agents shouted commands. Derek dropped the weapon, raised his hands, and kneeled on the steps. Detective Cole Harris was the first to reach him. Entering the house, Harris saw the body, the confession, and the evidence laid out in order. He looked at Derek for several seconds before saying, "Derek Kane, you're under arrest for 4 murders.